Senate Appropriations Judicial Subcommittee. I appreciate your leniency with our time. I know this was initially scheduled for 3 o'clock, but we went late on the floor today on the Senate, and all committee hearings got pushed back 30 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And with that, I want to thank my committee members. I want to thank Sonny from the Appropriations Office. Brent, I appreciate you being here and the good work that you have done, and Senator Huffstetler and Senator Strickland, thank you all for being here. Hopefully we'll have a few other committee members come in that will listen to your presentations as well, and thank you all for being here. I'm going to go a little bit out of order, if I may, as Chairman's prerogative, and begin with the Supreme Court. Justice Boggs, would you mind, if you're ready and prepared? Happy to have you start. Senator Albers, thank you. We're just about to start. So. And Chief Justice, your mic should be hot, both of those, if you want to pull those in.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have a brief presentation on behalf of the Supreme Court. I'm joined today by Presiding Justice Nels Peterson, who you all know, and Regina Jones, our budget analyst at the court. We're presenting from page 10, section 10 of HB 18, which is FY23 amended budget. I'm only going to really talk about one particular issue. Our required and pass-through requests, which are on 29.1 through 29.4, are $187,000. I'm happy to talk to you about any of those which are required or pass-through requests in the amended budget, which you see regularly every year. The major request in the amended budget is found at item 29.5, and it is a request for an upgrade to the Supreme Court docket system. Those of you that have used it know that the case management system includes the court's docket and for chambers and for the clerk's office. It handles attorney e-filing and electronic record submissions from the trial courts to the Supreme Court. And it's that system we have, which was established back in 2010 by the company Trevere, has been in place for 12 years now. We've been informed by Trevere that the system programming language that underpins the entire system is outdated and needs to be upgraded. And as odd as it sounds, there's only one person apparently at Trevere that can manage this operation system. And so when we need enhancements to that system, there's only one person that can write this code. And so it really exposes us unnecessarily to not being able to make enhancements to the code, having to work patches, and it increases our security risk as well. So we're asking for $1.5 million. The number you'll see is $1,543,500. So $1.5 million to upgrade that system. It is going to be a 2-year time frame to do that. It allowed us allow the flexibility to add new features to the system, future enhancements to the system, and will actually give us a system that is capable of being used in a way that's more meaningful for the lawyers, the clerks, and for the public and lawyers that rely on that system at our court. One of the recent upgrades that we've had at that system enables all of the judges to vote on all of the cases electronically through a docket system that has been upgraded. But getting those enhancements costs money, and getting those enhancements is going to be less available in the future as this system is not supported by Trevere any longer. So happy to answer questions about our amended budget requests, but essentially we're asking for an enhancement request of $1,671,009. To most of that is the upgrade to the funding for the Supreme Court docket. Questions if you have any, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Justice Boggs, thank you for that. And one question, the docket system that you were describing that's needed, would there be any expected recurring costs to the operational budget going forward?
I'm not aware of any ongoing cost other than our traditional upgrades that we have annually to upgrade the system. Enhancements would be the biggest expense moving forward. So as we try to make changes to that system, I can give you some examples, but as we're very cognizant about our obligations to be helpful to the lawyers and make sure that they're not having e-filing system problems, making sure the public can access some of these documents on our system, those enhancements cost money. So there'll be enhancement requests at our court and at the Court of Appeals. Court of Appeals is going to have the same request for their docket system, which is the same system that we have. So No ongoing other than the traditional expenses we have to maintain a docket system.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Justice. Appreciate the great work you and everyone in the courts do. Adding on just a little more about the new system, is that something that's going to be housed here in a state-run data center, or is that going to be hosted by a third party?
I don't believe it's hosted by a third party. I don't know. John Ruggieri is here. Is here. So
It is
John
what he has
Ruggieri
here?
does the IT at the Court of Appeals, but it is our property and in-house.
And my only maybe suggestion, not so much of a question at that point, is in today's cybersecurity world where everything is at risk and likely at one point to be compromised, that we have set up the complete separate backup system to be able to restore that in case of such a incident occurring.
Absolutely.
And I would also encourage you all to consider taking it off-site, because there are those who host things, whether it be directly or indirectly, and do a bit better job than we do locally. So,
Our backups are off-site and co-location site, separate from the existing network.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I've got just one more. Chief Justice Boggs, so last year we had passed SB 441 that created a board that was going to be responsible for handling criminal records at the trial court level. Is that anything that your court has had any involvement with, and is it anything you can provide any commentary on? Is that working well, kind of as the legislation was expected or intended to?
We have, I believe you're referring to the criminal data exchange system
Yes,
and
sir.
the legislation that required that to aggregate and really collect all of these different data points across multiple courts in the criminal arena. We have a committee that is vetting that process that includes the clerks, but it includes various classes of courts as well. They're well on their way to making some recommendations. It's not up and running, but it is. We're trying to fulfill the obligations of that bill, and that committee is well on their way of doing that. We have representation at the Supreme Court on that committee, but so does PAC, and I know Ms. Pete Scandalakis is here and can speak to the work of the committee, but I'm aware the committee is working on fulfilling those obligations.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? None other. Well then, Chief Justice Boggs, thank you for your usual concise and very informative presentation. Thank you for the work that you all do on the court. I know you've got a heavy docket compared to other states. We understand that. Thanks for the work that you do.
We really appreciate the support your committee has always given to the judiciary, and we're grateful for everything you do for us. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a great day. All right. Let us now hear from the Court of Appeals, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
I'm working from the tracking sheet. I hope that's okay.
Please, sure. If you'll just give us a page and a section number from your tracking sheet. Most
Section
importantly,
5.
Okay.
Present with me is Mr. Chris Walker, our fiscal person, who many of you are familiar with. Mr. Ruggieri, you've heard from, who is our technical person. Thank you for your kindness. Say a special thank you to Sonny and Brent, who have gone out of their way to be helpful to us and answer our questions, and it's very much appreciated. I realize that most of you all in the big joint appropriations already had to hear most of this, so I'm going to cut straight to the chase and be as quick as possible. On the tracking sheet, you'll notice a couple things that the House reduced. That first of all, there was $83,000 that we expected to be in insurance. This is 12.4 in cyber insurance premiums. As announced before, we were able to zero that out to Senator Alber's questions or comments about cybersecurity. We came out better on our cybersecurity audit than we thought, and our premiums didn't go up as much. And we enacted multi-factor authentication, which helped us. And so we were able to withdraw that, saved $83,000. You see the House on the 19 copiers, reduced that from 74,000 our request to 62,000. Nothing to say other than we can make that work. We've crunched the numbers and we can make that work. To Chief Justice Boggs' comments, we have the same exact request, Mr. Chairman, for our docket system. We have the same vendor. We have essentially the same folks that will be doing the work, and in sum and substance, I know you've already heard this, but two quick things. Where I hope, where I think you hope we can get to in Georgia is one of the biggest drivers of the delays in appeals is the transmission of the record. And eventually, what we learned during COVID, like many folks, is how dependent we are on that network, how much that system means. And you see a number of features that all during COVID, when we were forced to use the system, we use it for everything, but almost exclusively the system, we need to reach the point in Georgia, and we're getting there, where rather than paper records that are transmitted from far south Georgia all the way up to the court, we have to docket it, you have to get the transcripts. We're electronically transmitting everything, even digital video. And so that's sort of the bigger vision of where we get to, and we think all the upgrades will certainly help with that. And most people interact with us not through our physical building, but through that docket system. That is essentially the presentation, and I'm certainly not doing it to be too brief, but if I know anything about your business, it's more productive to get to the questions you have rather than what we think you want to hear. So I'm here for your questions. We have been treated well. We've been treated well this budget, and really excited about the better product we can deliver if we come through well.
Judge, thank you, and thank you for your service on the court. A couple of questions that I had, one similar to that I asked Chief Justice Boggs. Recurring cost from an operational budget standpoint after implementation of some of these requests,
We
any
believe,
comments you can
Chairman
provide on
Kennedy, is our understanding, we spend about $75,000 a year now in our maintenance. We do not expect that there will be extra recurring costs, that our ongoing maintenance will be the same under the old code as it is under the new code. John, am I
Okay.
stating that correctly?
Okay, all right, great. And if you've got Judge Rickman, if you've got your materials in front of you, one of the questions that I had, so for 12.1 indicates the request of 1.8 million as described, and then over on sections 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, and 12.10 are identified as increased funds for an electronic transfer of cases between Supreme Court and Court of Appeals, seem to be very similar to the request at 12.1. And is there a reason those four are broken out? And can you distinguish what those are as separate from the 12.1 request?
Yes, sir. The best way to put it, Chairman Kennedy, is those are bells and whistles. That 1.8 is, if we're building a house, it's going in and replacing the 2x4s and putting the sheet, essentially just rewriting the code. And all of these are bells and whistle features that would be added on top of just the remake of the substructure, for lack of a better term. John, accurate?
Yes, there are items too that we learned through code that we would like to automate. So while they're in there doing the bulk of the redesign of the system, these would be items that would be a good time to add, like electronic jurisdictional review and other items. So the 1.8 is like the basic replacement, what we have feature-wise now, and the others were features that enhancements we would do every year and we'd like to do at the same time.
Okay, gotcha. And Judge Rickman, similar to the question I asked Chief Justice Boggs with regard to SB 441, does your court have any involvement with the creation of that board or any oversight
We do not,
of
sir.
that board? Okay. All right, thank you. Questions from the committee? I don't see any. Judge Rickman, thank you very much. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your service and thanks for the work that your court does.
Thank you for your kindness towards us.
Yes, sir. Judge Hamrick, Statewide Business Court. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Please have a seat. If you're ready, we'd love to have you present to us.
Good to see you all. Thank you for having us.
You're most welcome. Remind our members of the committee, as y'all will recall, his service in our Senate. Yeah.
You're Mr. Pro Tem and Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Angie Davis is with me. Angie is the clerk for the statewide business court, and she was approved by the House and Senate Judiciary Committees as the first clerk and has been there since its inception. And as most of you know, I was appointed and approved by House and Senate Judiciary Committees in September. So I've gotten there, and I hadn't figured out how to ask for any money yet, but I'll keep working on that.
That's okay, Judge. You don't need to know how to do that. That's quite all right.
So we just would appreciate being able to maintain the operations, and the business court is working very well and efficiently as it is supposed to do. And we're here to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? All right. Chairman Huffstetler.
What was the number of, I know you're new in September, what was the number of cases for the last, I don't know, if either calendar year or fiscal year?
We've got some basically one-pagers we put together with some numbers, and we'll leave these with you. The
Okay.
total number of cases has been 83 total cases, and there are 26 or 27 pending cases. So obviously most of the cases have been settled or resolved in other ways through motions, or had 2 jury trials.
And 83 over what period of time?
29 months.
9 months, okay. That's all I got.
Did you have a question? No. Okay. All right. Any other questions from the committee? All right. You had the magic touch, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you very
all.
much. Great to see
Good
you.
to see
Thanks
you.
for being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Davis, for being with us, too. Yes, ma'am. Justice Bethel, would you like to go next and hear from the Judicial Council? All right. Another esteemed member from this Senate body who served very admirably.
Well, esteemed, I will accept it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm not under oath right now, Judge, so I'm...
It's a pleasure to be with y'all and in this room with the whole spectrum of memories that is associated with this space. I'm going to walk through the Judicial Council's amended budget and try to focus on the line items that have changed, proposed changes in the amended budget. So while I'm on section 6.3, and I'll try to start and move through your document in numerical order. Line item 16.1 is simply the catching of the COLA adjustment that was made last year when a new position was approved in last year's budget. It did not get the COLA that was passed for all state employees, which sort of leaves a stranded position. So it's just the amount to true up the COLA and associated benefits. Line 16.2 is an operational funding request. The budget, the fiscal year 2021 budget saw a reduction, and this still reflects a reduction from that point. It's always good to beat Florida, but for context, our ICJE has about one staff, or has one staff position per 537 judges served. Our equivalent sister in Florida has one staff person per 73 judges served. And so this is an operational cost of this operation. We feel like we get a return. And so the House did reduce that request for operational. Obviously, ICJE would like the full amount, but certainly welcomes any consideration on that front. In section 6.4, the Judicial Council proper budget, on line item 17.1, this is a request for funds for an automated data collection project. 50,000 of this request is for the startup upfront cost, and then pursuant to the questions that you've asked some of the other presenters, 20,000 would be an ongoing cost of this operation to manage the data collection. We continue to see increased demands generally, in other words, from our customers for data collection and data management issues, but also from the General Assembly, various things that require transparency and data collection. This project would increase our capacity to collect data by 15 times. In other words, the amount of data we'd be able to collect from our trial courts. It would create a quarterly reporting system as opposed to the current calendar year or annual one-time per year reporting system. And it would automate a substantial amount of our data collection, which we hope would allow us to increase accuracy and reliability. We have a ongoing Justice Counts initiative, which is part of the strategic plan that we provide both to the legislature and to the public. And this is consistent with that initiative from just straight data collection and management. Turning to line 17.2, this is a reduction from the House that is meant to reflect actual start dates. In other words, savings from actual start dates on positions that were approved last year. We have looked at the math and agree that that is the right number. In other words, that does reflect that. And so we certainly would be agreeable to maintaining the House position on that front. One other item that normally, traditionally, we sort of step aside, but there's not a whole lot of news here. Courtney Veal, who's the Deputy Director of the Judicial Qualification Commission, that budget comes under the Judicial Council. We historically have, for obvious reasons, tried to sort of step to the side and allow them to present. And Courtney is here if you have any questions, certainly. The House made a reduction in what was a one-time grant of funds for some contract staffing for the hearing panel. They were able to use both contract staffing and some pro bono attorneys, and so that amount is absorbable and acceptable to the commission in terms of what they anticipate actually spending there, and so there's no disagreement with the adjustment that was made. Those are the lines that I had noted, Mr. Chairman. I certainly will make myself available for questions.
Questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Parent, you're number 10?
Number 10.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Thank you for being with us. It's good to see my former seatmate. So the one, I may have, just want to make sure I'm clear, the one line that was sort of interest in which you hoped more funds could be added back in was 16.2.
That's correct. I mean, the request in the amended was for $64,077. The House reduced that by roughly $9,000. Not entirely sure there's a reason, and they don't have to give a reason. So that was the request, and it's linked to actual operational costs at ICJE. The alternative there is that they turn around and collect fees from folks who are paid with public dollars. So it's left pocket, right pocket for the most part. There is, as the chairman is aware, there's an ongoing analysis of how that balances out relative to non-state courts. In other words, courts that are funded from other sources.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Justice Bethel, one of the questions that came up from staff in reviewing this was generally, can you describe the level of the volume in the conducting of training that's going on across the state? Just generally, not specific, just generally.
So we have required training for all of our judges based on the class of court. In our court, we subject ourselves, even though we're exempted from the continuing ed, we subject ourselves to that by rule. But the ICJE is providing required training. They generally do that at the annual meetings of the various classes of court, and then supplementing that throughout the year. I don't have a number. I can get that. I don't have a data point for you, but I will certainly gladly supply it to the chair's office.
Okay. Yeah. And then lastly, what has been the Judicial Council's involvement in the criminal records data discussions surrounding SB 441, if any? So
I think that the committee itself operates through the Judicial Council structure. Am I representing that right? Or Cynthia? It's not.
Mr. Scandalakis, is he sharing?
It's not a committee of the Judicial Council.
So none?
Other than in a supporting sense, and in the sense that the data is generally being managed, it flows through the Judicial Council. In other words, the same data points. I don't think there's an effort to reinvent wheels, but maybe there are. Maybe there
Okay.
are.
All right, that's good enough. Anything else? All right, Justice Bethel, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great to see you. We hear from the juvenile courts all right, yeah, please come forward. I know we've got Judge Hurd on the list, but I think I got word he was not going to be here today.
Excuse me, that's correct.
All right, well, tell him I'm
He
sorry he wasn't able to
apologized.
make it. That's
he
quite
had
all
a-
right, and we'll miss getting to visit with him.
He had a full docket. He hated
Okay.
to miss it. I'm Kirsten Wallace. I'm the budget director with the Council of Juvenile Court Judges. Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for having us here today. With me is Ann Kirkhope. She's our staff attorney for the council.
Welcome.
Our budget presentation will be rather brief. We have one request. It's on page 6 of the document. We're in section 7, and we'll be looking at 21.1. And this is a $12,500 increase for grants to counties, and that's based on pursuant to Code Section 151152. And that's the formula to calculate the grants to counties for the
Okay.
juvenile court judges' salaries. And that's our request.
All right, any questions? I don't see any questions, so thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
But the Council of the Superior Court Judges.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Ken
Yes,
Dean.
sir. Welcome, Judge. Nice to have you with us. Hope everybody in Columbus is well.
They were
Good.
at noon when I left.
All right,
So
very
I hope
good.
that's still true. I have a brief and hopefully acceptable presentation to make to this committee. I invite your attention to page 10 of the Senate track sheet, section 9, Superior Courts. 28.100, the Superior Court Judges Program Budget. Our amendments are 3, 28.1, .2, and .3. In each instance, the request is for a reduction of funds for the initial equipment set up for the Ogeechee, the Flint Circuit, and the Cobb Circuit, which were created in January of 2022. So a net reduction in the FY 23 amended budget of $45,375,000. Of course, I have with me our Budget Director, Charles Miller, and between the two of us, we'd be happy to take any questions if there are any questions.
All right. Mr. Miller, thank you for being here. Appreciate your availability. Any questions from the committee?
Well, thank
don't
you
see
for your
any.
continued support of the court.
Absolutely. Judge, you may win you get the award. You're all reductions in yours, and that's great.
We aim to please when we can.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Yes, sir. Prosecuting Attorney's Counsel, Mr. Skandalakis. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see y'all. I'm Pete Skandalakis, Executive Director for the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. Sitting next to me is Chris Jones. Chris is our CFO, and I'll let Chris go through the numbers, and then I'm here to answer any questions, and I know you'll have a question about the CDX board, so I'm prepared to answer that. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Prosecuting Attorneys Council, Section 8, I believe that's going to be on page 7 of your track sheet. First, you'll see that the Council of Superior Court Clerks, both the program as well as the special project program, there are no changes for the amended budget. So moving down to the District Attorney's program, the first change you'll see, section, line 24.1, $1.8 million. At the time of our FY23 budget development, the rate was about 6% less than it was when it was changed in May, and this is the Employees Retirement System employer share. This is related to the pre-funding of the COLA for retirees. And this is really to account for the new plan and the GSEPS plan. And so all we're really asking here is for the differential from what we received in the big budget versus what it changed to, which was about 6% change. Line 24.2, $107,000. This change, it's not a state appropriated funds. It's to align the appropriations bill with the DHS child support contract. Next, line 24.3, this is a House reduction to reduce funds for personnel based on the actual start dates. No changes there. Then moving down to the Prosecuting Attorneys Council program, we have two changes. The first, 25.1, $168,000. This is the same basis as the Employees Retirement System contribution rates in the DA program. And so this is just a true up what was put into the base budget. Line 25.2, the reduction of $52,000. This is again to reduce for personnel based on actual start dates of new positions in FY23, and no changes there as well.
Okay, Mr. Jones, thank you. I want to make sure I'm clear on the 24.3 reduction as calculated by the House and the 25.2 reduction based on personnel start dates. You're in agreement with that?
Yes.
Those calculations are correct and acceptable?
They are correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, very good. Any questions from the committee? I don't see any, gentlemen. Thank you for being with us.
No questions about
Well,
this?
excuse me, wait a minute. That's right,
I
can't
was
let you
gonna
go.
say,
Yeah, you have Senator Strickland, Chairman Strickland, maybe you have a question you want to ask him about.
Yeah, did we pass a bill last year that's going to set up some sort of exchange?
You did.
Do you know anything about that?
The Criminal Data Exchange Board. Unfortunately, I was voted chairman of it, so I know a lot about it.
Have you
I
done
was-
anything yet, or are you still just
I
having meetings?
I objected to it, but no, we've accomplished a lot. We've had multiple meetings, and participating on that board are the sheriff, police chiefs, Superior Court Judge, Judge Wade Padgett's on that board, clerks, DAs, Solicitor Generals. There's some others on there, and I'm just forgetting. Oh, GBI, GCIC, we're all on there. We've identified some problems. We've identified some issues. We've come up with some standards for the prosecutors to start inputting data into the disposition forms. We're now dealing with the fingerprint issue, which is not a big issue, but it's a small issue because how you track a case from the time of arrest of the sheriff's department until the disposition through Superior Court or state court. But we're dealing mostly now with felonies because that seems to be the area we wanted to concentrate on to begin with. We have those standards. We have another meeting probably scheduled in the next 2 or 3 months. We just finished a meeting last week. But we're making progress. It's slow progress. We didn't get here overnight. But it's a good board because everybody is participating. Everybody is vocal. Everybody has an opinion. Obviously, when you have sheriffs, chiefs, prosecutors, judges involved, there's a lot of information. And, you know, we have some more work to be done, but we're getting there.
We appreciate you stepping up and volunteering to lead that.
Yeah, well, I wish it was a volunteer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did that help?
Yes, sir, it did. Thank you, Chairman Strickland. And thank you for that sort of update on where you are, and thank you for your work on that.
Thank you.
So I don't see any other questions, so thank you for being with us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
I think I see the Attorney General in the house and others with him, so welcome. Welcome,
Thank you,
Mr. Attorney General.
Members of the committee, appreciate you all having us today.
Absolutely, glad to have you. And Mr. Banks is going to join you.
He is.
I am here, Mr. Chairman.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
The
All right.
institution of the law department.
Yes, he is. The
Mr.
floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will be focusing on pages 11 and 12 of your tracking sheet for the Department of Law. 22.8, as you'll see, the House has added $633,445 to address the COLA shortfall. 228.2 is $174,253 to address the ERS shortfall. And then 228.3 is $62,878 as a clawback on unused funds for personnel based on actual start dates of new positions. So we're requesting items 228.1, 228.2, as we've mentioned to many of you on the committee, to address the difference in the amount appropriated in FY23 and the actual cost of those items to our agency. As far as the COLA, the $5,000 COLA appropriation, the law department was appropriated just over $1.4 million, and the actual cost is just over $2.1 million. And for the ERS contribution, the law department was appropriated just over $1 million, and the cost to administer was $1.2 million. And that, our numbers are based on the actual cost to the law department program, which is virtually 100% state-funded employees. And as we have mentioned to many, though, we have come with a pay-for, and that is the settlements, the multi-state settlements that our department engages in. We bring in money every year that the state wasn't expecting, not appropriating. In my 6 years as Attorney General, it's been just over $14 million per year. This year, in the first 6-7 months, we're at $22 million. So we would just simply ask that you agree with the House, utilize those funds that we have brought in, and appropriate those dollars for us, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Any questions from the committee? And by the way, we should say thank you for the work done and the funds that have been received, for your and your team's good work on multiple litigation fronts. So thank you for that.
Thank you all for your support as well. We
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Any questions? I don't see any. Thank you, sir.
Thank
you,
y'all.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all
Appreciate
being
it.
with us.
Thank you.
Georgia Public Defenders Council, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you again.
Same here, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
We are on page 14 of 14.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. The
Okay.
floor is yours.
Well,
Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon, good evening. Last year you passed the HB 1391, and I cannot say thank you enough. But it was not fully funded. And I think there was a problem in the funding line, but what we did, the excitement that it generated was just amazing. For the first time, I think probably in the US, in the country, it was totally unprecedented to have that kind of parity. And so we're really happy, but the funding was not there. So what we did, we couldn't find the first 3 months. We've been able to find in our budget to continue with the excitement. So we're still owing about $700,000 of it, and I'm asking for that today. So we can pay the first 3 months. I found some money in our budget to pay we paid, what months did we pay? We paid from October till now, and we're really running low on funds, but I just didn't want it to be an unfunded mandate. So we're coming back to you to get that money to complete the excitement and to be able to pay our CPDs for that money.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Strickland.
Thank you. So the change on line 245.1 that the House did, what percentage of that, is that money going towards the salary? Is that what, you wanted more than that, or is that the amount for the amended?
So the 482 is what's left for the rest of the year.
Right.
The 289 is what we did not pay the first 3 months when we were trying to figure out where the money was going to come from. So the House gave us the 482, but we're just asking you to complete the process so we can pay them the first 3 months and continue to pay for the rest of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question, Chairman. Any other questions from the committee? Senator Parent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hope this isn't too far afield, but I'm just curious. I haven't gotten to hear too much. I'm new on this committee from Public Defender's Council. Do you know the average number of cases each public defender handles, or do you have that by circuit? I'd just be curious.
So that's a moving target. We go from month to month. For an example, if someone leaves, we have to absorb those numbers. So it depends on, and then we do have some legal deserts. And we're working with those where we just cannot find attorneys at all for those areas. So to that end, we've created the specialized unit. They are housed downtown. We dispatch them to places where we're just having real trouble. So those numbers are it's just a moving target. It could be 10 today, then someone leaves and leaves 150 cases, then we have to distribute it. So it's a lot, but we do have a way of helping. We do have constant conversations with those areas where we think we have problems.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? I don't see any. So thank you very much
Thank
for your
you.
presentation. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you.
All right, any comments, Sonny? Mr. Churchwell? Later. All right, very good. Any comments from the committee? Anything you want to share at this time? Yes, sir.
One question.
Chairman Hufstatler.
And I know this is looked at another level. If we get a budget here that's what was last year, right?
As we roll into July, budget we passed in last session.
So my question is, you give up $1.8 million for a system. The next year, can they come up and say, we're not asking for any more money than last year, but actually have a lot more money? I mean, I like seeing the historical trends or something, and I don't know. You know, at the county level, we would have a little bit more detail on the trends and stuff. So I wish we.
What you say, there's going to be a minimum of 20-25% reoccurring fee on that system, not at the low end. That's just going to be normal maintenance.
But yeah, but I mean that's fine. But let's see it. You know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You want to see a percentage.
Well, I'm just saying that there's
to their budget.
when there's things that maybe are unusual expenses, how do we catch them